open this. The shrine was clearly tended, fresh offerings, a swept path, incense recently burned. He stopped to rest, stayed longer than he intended. When the light changed, he noticed the offerings had been replaced. He had seen no one, heard no one. Both paths were empty, and the incense burning now was a different variety from when he arrived. Someone had been there, while he was sitting still enough not to be noticed. Don't sit too long beside any shrine tonight. It is time for chapter 173. Shinto shrines in mountain forests have a particular quality that roadside shrines do not. The depth of the forest around them, the specific silence that forest produces, not the absence of sound but a different register of it. The awareness of being in a space that has held religious attention for a very long time. Most walkers who stop at such shrines feel this quality without being able to name it precisely, the sense of a space that is not simply natural but intentional, maintained, attended to by something that takes the maintenance seriously. Most assume this attendance is human, most are right. But occasionally the attendance at a deep forest shrine is something else. Something that noticed the walker sitting quietly beside the stone and continued its work regardless. A man was walking a mountain route that passed through a cedar forest of considerable age. The route was well documented. He had maps, the path was clear. The shrine was marked on his map as a point of interest. He found it where the map indicated, a small structure set back from the path, a stone torii gate, the particular arrangement of a maintained mountain shrine. He stopped. The shrine was clearly tended. Fresh fruit and rice on the offering shelf, a swept stone path, the stub of incense still producing a thin thread of smoke. He sat on a stone beside the path to rest and eat. He had been walking since early morning, and the shrine offered a natural stopping point. He sat longer than he planned. The forest had a quality that made leaving feel less urgent than arriving. He became aware of the change in the offerings gradually. The light had shifted. He had been sitting for perhaps 2 hours, longer than he had intended. And in the changed light, the shrine looked different. He looked more carefully. The fruit on the offering shelf was different from what had been there when he arrived. Fresh, arranged with the care of someone who knew how these things were done. The incense was a different variety, he could tell from the smell, which had changed at some point during his sitting without him noticing the change. He stood, looked at both paths, empty in both directions as far as the forest allowed him to see. He had been sitting with a clear view of the approach from both sides. He had not slept. Had not been distracted to the degree that someone could have passed without his awareness. If these stories have found their way to you, if you find yourself returning to this quiet room, there is something small you can do. Like and subscribe. It tells me, and whatever else watches from this room, that you were here and that you intend to find your way back. If you have a story of your own, Granny is always listening, watching, waiting. He examined the shrine carefully. The new offerings were fresh, the fruit cold in the way of something recently handled, or simply the particular temperature of the forest. Shak koi, that cold. The cold of fruit that has been in someone's hands recently, hands that had been beside this shrine, while he sat within clear view of both approaches, without his awareness. He looked at the stone he had been sitting on, at the angle it offered of the shrine and the paths. He had been sitting in a position that should have made approach impossible without his knowledge. He stood in the forest beside the shrine and thought carefully about what the offerings meant, about who maintained this shrine, about what the maintenance looked like when no human was present to observe it. Izui, that thought, uncomfortable in the specific way of a conclusion you have reached correctly and would prefer not to have reached. He did not leave immediately. This surprised him afterward. He had expected that the rational response would be to leave. Instead, he found himself sitting back down on the stone, looking at the newly tended shrine, at the fresh incense smoke, at the careful arrangement of the offerings, and feeling, rather than fear, something closer to the particular quality of being in the presence of something that is going about its work with complete competence and has no particular interest in being observed, but is not troubled by observation either. The shrine was maintained. The maintenance had just occurred. Whatever maintained it had been here, was perhaps still here, in the forest, in the spaces between the old cedars, and had simply continued its attendance without requiring his departure. Ndanya, that's right indeed. Some shrines are maintained by something that has been doing so for longer than the shrine's recorded history. You are still here. Good. Some stories need a witness all the way to the end. I wonder if you felt the presence of something maintaining a shrine while you sat beside it. Would you make an offering before you left? He left eventually, as the light began its final shift toward evening. Before leaving, he made an offering of his own, the last of the food he had brought for the walk, placed it carefully on the shelf beside what had been left by whatever maintained this shrine. He did not know if this was the correct thing to do, simply felt that it was, a gesture of acknowledgement towards something that had been going about its work beside him for 2 hours, without requiring anything from him except his eventual departure. He bowed to the shrine in the way he had been taught, walked back to the path, did not look back. The smell of the different incense followed him for some distance through the cedar forest. Longer than incense smoke should carry. He walked until it was gone, then continued. In the particular quality of silence that follows an encounter with something that was not troubled by your presence, but noticed it. I think about the maintenance of old things, the swept path, the fresh offerings, the incense replaced at the correct time. Most shrines in mountain forests are maintained by people, specific individuals or communities who understand the obligation and honor it. But occasionally, a shrine's maintenance continues through periods when no human community is responsible for it, through decades when the nearest settlement has moved or diminished, through seasons when the path is not walked by anyone who could be carrying fresh offerings, the shrine maintained regardless by something that has been doing this work long enough that the doing of it is simply what it does, in the particular forest, at the particular shrine, regardless of who sits nearby on a stone and eats their lunch and stays longer than they planned. Izui, the particular discomfort of understanding that the world contains maintenance obligations we know nothing about, and that they are being met, whether we are watching or not. Another whispered story from Japan, shared quietly here beside the kotatsu. If you stop to rest beside a mountain shrine, note what is on the offering shelf before you sit. The fruit, the rice, the variety of incense. Note it carefully. And if after an hour or two you look again and what is there is different, fresh where it was not fresh, replaced where it had not been replaced, different incense burning with a different smell, look at both paths, because if they are empty, if you have been sitting with a clear view of both approaches and have not slept, then the maintenance you are witnessing is not human, and whatever tends this shrine has been beside you, going about its work, without requiring your departure or your acknowledgement, but perhaps aware, in whatever way such things are aware, that you noticed. Before you leave, make an offering. Place it carefully beside what was left by whatever maintains this place. Bow, walk away, and do not look back until the smell of the incense is gone. If this story stayed with you, if the dark or the shadow feels a little closer tonight, you know where to find me. I am always here beside the kotatsu, watching, waiting. And if you wish others to find their way here too, there is something small you can do, like and subscribe. I would not object. And if you have a story of your own, this quiet room has space for your experiences too. Granny is always listening.